Okay, so hi, Miss Forrest.
Hello, Ethan.
I'm gonna be interviewing you today and just asking you a couple questions. And I think should we just go on with it
Sure.
and yeah, okay.
Okay.
So my first question is, what first led you to like pursue writing professionally rather than keeping it as a personal ministry or hobby?
Sure. So I have to be kind of go back and begin. My husband and I were called very young to be missionaries in Kenya, East Africa. And one of the things that I discovered right away as we started serving overseas is that it was very hard to grow spiritually when you went to a church that was spoken in a language you did not understand. And so it was as a minister, as a server, serving as a missionary, you give out a lot. You give and give and give, and you've got to receive some information, or you've got to receive teaching from the Lord in order to fill up spiritually. And so, one of the things I discovered was that as I started to journal during my personal quiet times, I loved I loved the writing. And I found that as I wrote, I heard the Lord speaking to me, and that became the way I started to fill up, since I wasn't actually receiving through the church services and the teaching of the pastor. And as I wrote, I found that there was oftentimes the things that God spoke to me that He then used for me to share with other people. I began to speak out of what I wrote in my journals. I began to do chapels for the we were serving at Rift Valley Academy in Kenya, East Africa as missionaries. I guess I should tell you that. So I would speak in chapels at this boarding school, and a lot of what I shared with the students was coming out of the things that I was journaling. And so it became clear to me that the Lord was kind of directing my path. That as I wrote, I would then share with others, and it was meaningful to others. And I loved it. I loved the writing. I loved the fact that it just felt like the Lord was speaking to me personally, and then it was useful as well to others. So I guess it was, maybe 10 years of just doing that when I began to think about, well, why don't I write this down in a book and just do it as devotionals? Kind of, I would share a story, and then from my own personal life, and then what the Lord spoke to me using scripture verses, and just anecdotes and that type of thing. And so that began really the journey for me to write books. So what I write is mostly nonfiction. I have
Mm-hmm.
done some fiction, but mostly nonfiction, Christian inspirational, and I use that then to speak out of, as well as to share with others through the writing. And it's kind of exciting that the Lord would use those little snippets from my life to
Mm-hmm.
share with other people and have it be meaningful for them as well.
Okay, that's actually really cool. So I have a question. Did you like
Mm-hmm.
ever hesitate to like when you heard God like speaking to you and you getting
Mm-hmm.
a calling? Did you ever hesitate or like doubt taking that step?
Oh,
Was it
absolutely.
scary?
Yeah, and that's the word, scary. Because nobody wants to feel rejection,
Yeah,
So
of course.
what if I write all this, I take all this time, I write it all down, and it's meaningless, and it's just been a waste of my time. But so there's that huge hurdle of fear
Mm-hmm.
that to jump over for a writer, because it does it's very personal, and it's a very personal act. And so there is that fear of failure that is huge and has to be overcome. And so even with that, I had to I found myself writing about that, and and hearing that nothing that we offer to the Lord is wasted. So just go for it and see what happens. And even if it was just for me, or even if it's for my family, because we don't have a lot of money that we're going to end up leaving my children or my
Right.
grandchildren. We're not wealthy people, but I do have a legacy in words, and I think that's important as well. So yes, was a great question.
Okay.
Huge hurdle of fear to overcome.
Okay. So how did your experience as like a missionary influence your voice and storytelling as like an author?
Mm, yeah, it really, my voice became my experience as a
Oh,
missionary.
okay.
So I would say hugely, because so many of the stories that I share come out of those years that we served. You'll find in my books, I use illustrations of, how the Lord spoke to me when I found lizard eggs in my computer.
Mm-hmm.
Or there was a python in our backyard, and was that going to eat our dog or our daughter?
Right.
We weren't sure, but just working through some of the fear things that happened over there. One of our very good friends was murdered on the side of the road, and
Mm.
as they were driving from one mission station to another. And so, writing about those things and how the Lord helped me work through fear or work through some of the scenarios that we faced while we were serving as missionaries became touch points for me to then use because one of the things I do today now is I speak all over the world at retreats for women who serve globally. They either work globally or they're missionaries in other countries. And so, because of my past and the background I have as a missionary, I'm able to encourage them and help them work through some of the same issues that I faced when I was serving on the field.
Okay, that's really
I
cool
hope
actually.
and I
Um,
hope that's helpful. I don't know if
yeah.
ask if it's not clear, just ask.
No, I got a lot from that. Thank you.
Hmm.
I do have another question, like following up on like what you're talking about. So like, how did those like experiences like impact your perspective, like on faith and like your identity, basically?
So yeah, you've got some great questions. Of course, it's very identity forming, because the more you grow in your faith, what's happening is you're seeing yourself understanding who God is better. And as you understand who God is more, that shapes your identity. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing the Lord shapes who you are, because who out of who he is who I am. And so, he's father, so I'm his beloved child. It
Mm-hmm.
changes how I view myself. And when my identity is shaped, then my behavior changes as well. And so all of those things just kind of worked together, one after another. As I served on the mission field, I learned more about how I could trust the Lord, because he is who he says he is. And out of who he is, I am. And when I know who I am because of him, it changes my actions as well and transforms my character. So I think, that's just been a huge, huge piece of
Okay,
that faith journey. Yeah.
that's cool. That's awesome. Okay. So, what did the process of publishing your first book teach you about the professional side of writing?
Taught me a lot, actually, because I hadn't a clue how to get started or where to go or what to do. I just was very naive in all of this. And so, you know, again, this was just part two of my faith journey, because my path connected with a young man in those early days of writing, connected with this young man who worked for a publishing company. And he read some of what I had written and said, well, I'd like to help you. And so he kind of helped me on that journey. We self-published to begin. We didn't use his publishing company, and so all of those books we have eventually put on Amazon. But um, he walked me through the journey. He helped me understand I would need to hire a graphic artist. Yeah, I would need to have somebody who could edit well, because you can write and write and write and think you have very meticulously edited your own work and see something that you have written 100 different times and never recognized that it was a mistake. So you have to have those people who will be critical in a good way, well, and critical in a bad way, be willing to help you cut it apart and put it back together so that it makes better sense, so that it's more accurate, so that it's more readable. So there were just a lot of pieces to that writing process that I would never have had a clue what to do had it not been for this young man. And so he was just a lifesaver. Since then, I have kind of done some little bit on my own, and we now publish under our ministry umbrella. As its own entity. So,
Hmm.
so I know the process better. I still have to have
Yeah.
people to help, but I know the process that it takes
Okay.
to do that.
So how did you handle like editing or like rejection or I don't know? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard one. You've got to really be thick-skinned
Yeah.
and understand that. I think that was the piece where I just finally had to come to this: if I'm going to get better, and I'm going to be the best I can be, and I want to be the best I can be for the glory of the Lord, because since that's what I'm doing it for, right?
Hmm.
If that's going to happen, then I have to be willing to have somebody come into my life who's going to be hard
Hmm.
on me, and not just
Of course, yeah.
say, "Oh, this is so wonderful. You don't have any mistakes here."
They need to
And
be like actually helpful like during the whole thing and
yeah, that sometimes it's the hard stuff that makes us grow the most, and it's the same with writing. It's the hard editing, it's the
yeah.
red pen and the coming back and stuff. And one thing I think that really helped me too, I remembered reading an Ernest Hemingway quote. He was, you can Google him if you don't know who
Okay.
Ernest Hemingway is, but he was a very, very well-known author in earlier 1900s. And he used to say, I write and I write and I write, and then I go back and I kill, this was his quote, I kill all the little darlings. And what he meant was, I write things, I just love the way I phrased them. I like the turn of the phrase. I like maybe it's the alliteration that I have used in there, or the metaphor that I have used. And I go back and I realize that's not really necessary to the point of what I've written. And so I have to kill it. I
Hmm.
have to cross it out and murder that thing for now. And maybe it'll fit into
Yeah,
another
come back
piece of
later
writing.
and like
Yeah,
see
and
if it
I
fits
can
in
use
with
it again.
that.
Exactly. I can use it somewhere else. It's just not for this piece of writing at this time.
Yeah.
And I've had to do that many times. And that's where an editor is so valuable, because they can very objectively say, knowing that your writing is so personal, they can very objectively come back then and say to you, this is a great sentence, but it's not necessary in
Yeah.
here. Or this paragraph, cut that
Cut it
baby
out. Yeah.
because it's just redundant. So it takes a while to grow that thick skin, but
Hmm.
boy, you have to do it.
Okay.
And I've learned how to be a lot harder on myself than I was in the early days too, and critique my own writing as well. And tell you what, I don't know that your professor is really going to want to hear this, but I have found that Chat GPT really helps me edit a bunch of stuff out because I don't use it to write, but I will copy and paste my writing in and just ask, give the parameters.
Mm-hmm.
What is what is unnecessary in what I have just written? And I'll get some great responses
Mm-hmm.
from from AI.
Yeah.
And and then I go back and rework it, re-edit it before I ever even give it to my editor.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
so the
exactly no. So that's exactly what our professor tells us. Um, we're pretty like we use it to edit. Like we make our writing
mm-hmm,
before like not to like we give our writing like, hey, make this and give it back to me, right?
mm-hmm.
We
Yeah,
turn in like what we wrote and then we make it edit for us, like
yeah,
see, is this good, where can I get more strong points, like what can I
yes.
talk about more, am
Or,
I missing
or
out?
or maybe give me some reflective questions of things
Exactly,
that
yeah.
I can add. I want it to be my voice. I don't want an AI voice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you can tell with something like Chat GPT. I don't know what you use.
Mm-hmm.
My son uses Gemini, but
Mm-hmm.
you can tell an AI voice from your own voice. And I add the humor and I add
Mm-hmm.
little those little personal anecdotes that
Yeah.
make it me and all of my personally me. So so why not use something that's available to you? it
Mm-hmm.
it saves me money. I don't have to pay my editor as much if I've done a lot of that streamlining through AI
Yeah.
originally.
Yeah, no,
And
it's
so
just it's a super helpful way to like get points on like what you're talking about or like what you're
mm-hmm,
missing. So
mm-hmm.
yeah, that we
Yeah,
talk about that all the time in class.
yeah.
It's something we like we do.
So
Yeah.
you may as well utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know if that was if professors now were trying to get students to shy away from it a little bit so that they would have the experience of actually doing but if you're doing a good combination of both, why not
Yeah.
use it?
We're just yeah, basically we're just using it to edit our own writing. So
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
great.
So how does your writing process differ from like when working on a full length book versus like a blog post or like devotional, you know?
Oh, yeah. So I look at a blog, and I've never had any kind of instruction in blogging. I just sort of picked it up and dabbled with it and thought of it more in terms of like a blog as what we used to call a newspaper editorial.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I compared it to. And a newspaper editorial is generally, they like them to be around 800 words. So my writing in a book, a chapter is going to be longer than 800 words, right?
Yeah.
And a book is going to be longer than that. So your writing in a book is going to be fluid and it's going to expand over several chapters as you develop your thought. With a blog, I want to develop a thought in 800 words. And so, what I want to do is say something in such a way that there's something memorable that comes out of that blog post.
Yeah.
And so I will write, but then highlight specific things that I think are my main ideas and try to keep it succinct. So I will with a well, I can do this in a book too, but in a blog post, I'm much more cautious about putting headings and breaking it up. I've seen some blogs where people write and write and write and write, and I have a tendency to not read a lot of words.
Okay. Do
I
you like
give
just
up.
skim through?
Mm, yeah,
Mm.
I give up before I get to the end because they've written so much. and that's not what I want to do. So when I blog, I'm very cautious to try and make it shorter so that if somebody's reading, they'll read it to the very end.
Yeah.
And I utilize things that I think are helpful. So I utilize a lot of white space
Okay.
so that it's not just a bunch of words. I utilize headings and captions. I will throw in quotes and maybe, put them on a photo that I stick in. Because I think we have a society today that they don't like long videos.
Yeah.
They don't, we want the TikTok version.
Like the 10
Um,
second kind of.
yeah,
Okay.
or, give me a minute, but
Yeah.
don't give me four, that type of thing. And so it is with blogs too. The more to the point and shorter you can make it, the better. And so even just recently, I'd say since the first of the year, I have even cut my blog posts down to more around between 400 and 500 words.
Okay.
So that's different than me writing a book where the chapters are definitely going to be long.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you're looking out for the readers, which is good. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't thought of it that way, but you do want to know your audience.
Yeah.
For sure. Whether it's a book or a blog, who is your audience? Who are you writing
Yeah.
to? So on my blog, it's for the women I speak to overseas. It's a follow-up for them. It's an encouragement. Those women can get on and just say, I just need a quick little, pinpoint devotional to encourage me in the midst of my, everyday work
Yeah.
here in Bali. And so I have that available for them. That's who I'm writing to. If it's a book, my audience is a little different. I'm writing to I'm writing to believers, obviously,
Right.
to followers of Jesus, but I'm also my audience is a little broader. It's still for the most part to women, um, but it's going to be because I discuss women's issues, but it's still going to be the age range maybe a little different, or these are the blog is definitely more for missions. This is
Yeah.
more for the general pop.
Okay. So due to time, we're gonna lead into just one more question.
Mhm.
So who do you consider your primary audience? And like, I know you already talked about that, but like,
Mhm.
but how does it like shape your tone and more of your message?
That's a great question too. Shaping my tone. I want, when I think of tone,
Mm-hmm.
I want my readers to hear my voice.
Okay.
So most of the gals or the people, because there are, a few men who have picked up the blog or picked up a book and read them. I want them to hear my voice. And so most of them have either heard me speak somewhere in a church or at a retreat or a conference someplace. And when they leave, I want them to remember what my voice sounds like in the books that they take with them,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. So the other side of it is too, and I mentioned this earlier, I think about it a lot. I am leaving a legacy with my words. I don't have a lot of money to leave my family. You would think that at this day and age, we would have more than we do financially, but because we've been in ministry so long, we aren't wealthy people,
Mm-hmm.
but I do have a legacy in words that I'm leaving my family. And my hope is when I'm gone, which is probably not too far off,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm gone, my kids and my grandkids, and maybe even some great grandkids who might come along,
Right.
will still be able to hear my voice speaking through what I have written. And that, if that happens, I don't care how many people have read my book, but if that happens where my family still hears my voice, then I consider that to be a success. I will have been a success.
Okay.
Does
Um,
that does that answer that question?
yeah, no,
I
that,
mean,
that,
my audience is definitely more, the women I
yeah,
speak
exactly. Like
to,
you said,
that kind of
in the
thing. That's
Christians,
my
and
general
yeah.
audience, the Christian audience that I speak to. But it's also an inheritance that I'm trying to leave as
Hmm.
well.
So just one last follow up question. Like,
Hmm.
do like consider with that the last question we were talking about. Do
Uh-huh.
you think that audience has like changed over time? I'm curious.
Uh, Boy, you have some great questions. I don't know if you thought of these on your own, but these are great questions. Yes, yes, they have.
Okay.
Be- and the reason is because over time we have moved into a faster paced, higher technological world.
Okay.
Not as many people are reading, not as many people are writing. Well, maybe more people are writing, but not as many people are. And what we are reading, we want it on a Kindle.
Yeah, or
We
like
want it
online.
on our phone. We
Yeah.
want it, yeah. We want to be able to get to it quick. We want to zip through it quick. We want to
Hmm.
have it, because that's how we're being trained through the internet today. Everything goes at a very high, fast TikTok speed.
Yep.
And or maybe in your case of video gaming speed. And so because of that, because of how fast paced it is, the audience doesn't have the patience for the long. uh, don't give them a book that starts slow and builds and builds and builds, and then all of a sudden you're really into the action and boom, you're done.
Yeah.
If you're going to write them a book, they want, sounds terrible. They want somebody to die in the first chapter because, I'm talking about a novel. They
Yeah.
want them to, they want some action, really good action in the first chapter. Or they're not going to read the rest of the book.
Yeah, because
So,
they want it in the end as well, or like in the middle. There has to be
yeah,
more. Yeah.
like it has to be every other chapter,
Yeah.
or, and so even what I write is not that. And, because obviously I'm more nonfiction, but, and so I want it to be more inspirational. But if I'm going to hook them, I'm going to have to share it from a personal standpoint to begin with. I can't just start talking about the Bible and have somebody read it.
Yeah.
They need to be hooked in, grabbed, and that was my point with the illustration. They have to be, there has to be a good hook that draws them in, and then they'll finish reading what you have written.
I mean, you also have to give them time too, because there's patience, right? Like for someone who's starting new and trying to get into this, this new like part of this this world, like they've never experienced yet. You gotta at least like give them some time to, think about it and
Yeah,
like
and process
church,
through
like
it.
you want to make sure they do like show up more than like one time.
Yeah. And
So
I think we're going to see that change again over time.
okay.
I'm seeing kind of a trend with your generation, actually,
Okay.
because you grew up with the internet from the time you were born. You don't know a world without the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, that's all I knew for the first 30 years of my life was a world without internet. So your generation, always having had it, now recognizes that not everything you read online is true.
Yeah. You can't trust anything.
And you can't always trust it. So
Yeah.
you want authenticity. Your generation wants honesty. Your generation wants to know that what you're reading and looking at and seeing is actually tangible and real, and can be attained by you. And so I think we're going to see a movement back to holding the hard copies of books, and wanting to know that the stuff that you are blogging is experientially true for you because you walked it. It's real because I'm not just making this up and putting it out there, but this I actually did. This I actually achieved. This I actually experienced.
You need
And
sources.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
and that will make it credible and where people will want to read it.
Yeah. No, how do I know it's not AI? So it's like,
Exactly.
yeah,
At this point, how do you know? You don't.
you
And
can't.
so, so we're gonna see some interesting trends
Yeah. Over
in
time. And
the
yeah.
coming years. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But somebody like you know, your niche might be because I know you do a lot of esports and the
Yeah.
video gaming. That might be your niche where you can say, "Here's my reality. This is how it worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I had to do to achieve this."
Yeah.
But there are, you know, this is tangible and real, and I lived it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I lived it, you can too. You just have to follow this path.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You
like
know,
what.
here's
Yeah.
my roadmap. Follow it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a really good roadmap. Yeah. Well, thank you for meeting me today. Sorry I
You're
couldn't.
welcome.
I had more questions, but I couldn't. There's time and.
That's okay. Well, if you want to email me some questions
Okay.
that I could respond to, that would be fine too.
Yeah, I think I actually will do that because I'm a little more curious. I wanted to get to more. It's just yeah, I
I
couldn't.
talk too much.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's fine.
That's all right.
But yes, I am gonna end it here. I'll email you like the other questions, and
Okay.
if you have like an answer to them, go ahead. And
Okay.
yeah, we'll end it here. Thank you again. It was
You're
a
welcome.
pleasure meeting you, Miss
Yeah,
Forrest.
you too. You too.
Thank you.